Okay, first thing we got to do is that we got some spots. Everything has a little spot here and there, low spots, high spots, but the main part is this pinstriping that's on here from the factory, and it's raised. It's, you can feel it. It's higher than the regular paint job, so that's got to come off first. And there isn't any in the front, but these pieces got to come off first. And what we're going to use, DA and 80 grit. So we're going to just zip all this off so we can start working on the low spots and the little rust spots and all these little spots. So first thing, take any pinstriping off that's on it, take it off. Okay, the DAing is done. And now all the big spots are knocked down. So what we have left is, I left a nice little yellow leftovers from the original paint. But this will tell you highs and lows. Metal is high. Dark spots are low. This is rust spots, rock chips, hail damage, just 50 years of run around. Dark spot, low spot. Low spot, metal, high spot. Now, metal, high spot. Okay. So she's pretty straight, but big thing was getting that striping off. And the other pain in the butt was this, because they had basically just, this was the original color brown that this hood was. And so it would just, they just kind of like, they didn't do anything, they just kind of sprayed it. And it just kind of, you can kind of see it's like here on the edge, it's kind of drippy. And so I just took a fine file and I knocked them all down. But what I would have done, and what I did in the past with this kind of stuff, was I took a cotter pin with a piece of sandpaper wrapped up in it, chucked up in a drill, and just went through all that. But with all the stuff I got, no cotter pins. So I did it that way. So, but she's slicked out. So now, high spots I'm not doing nothing with, but the low spots, all these little dings, these are all, you can feel them, catch them with your finger. You know, they're just, that's dirt. They're just, these are all low spots, and you can either go spot putty, which I know you guys hate, and it would work, and then a coat, and then blocking, and a spot putty and blocking. But I'm thinking about mixing up my last little bit of Bondo and just ding, 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 ding through there with the Bondo. I don't know. What do y'all think? Fooled you. I'm gonna use Bondo for the first ones, because some of them are a little bit deep. There's some pretty good rock chips in there. I'm gonna use Bondo, but it's gonna be just a little small amount, because I'm just gonna dab it here, there, like a spot putty, and let that cure, and then the block sanding starts, and then the first coat of primer, and then the spot putty on that to just slick it out, because this is going to be the focal point. Like I said on those fenders, as you can see, I covered everything up so I didn't get dust everywhere, and I rolled all the windows up. The top edge of that fender is what's going to be seen, but the one thing that's going to be seen most of all is going to be this hood. If this hood doesn't look right, it's going to make the rest of the truck look like shit. So this one has to be spot on. So we're going to do Bondo with all the low spots first. So because this hood, you know, it rattles and moves and everything as you're driving it. It gets, you know, it's a big piece. You know, it's 5 foot by 5 foot square, and it's going to bend and move, and air is going to hit it, and things are going to go around it. And so this needs to be pretty rock solid. So the best way to do low spots right now is Bondo. Okay, I know you guys saw this on the last video I had, but we're just going to use a little bit of this leftover Bondo that we have, and she's pretty dry, which is fine. We're just going to be using a little bit. It ain't going to take much that's left out of this to put on this deal, and all I use is just an old piece of cardboard, and I just cut it off, and I try to find the one that has like a coloring or a gloss on it, because it seems to stick less, and, you know, a little bit harder. And we're just going to mix this up and get over here on all the spots on the hood. Okay, and that's all we're going to use. This is a glob about the size of a golf ball. That's all we need. We got plenty left for the bottom of this. I scraped her down. So whatever we have left over, do little spots on that cab. This should be enough to finish it up, along with the hardener. So as it hardens this, we'll mix this up and we'll start daubing some pinholes, rock chips, and I'll show you what I use, which is not a spreader, to do this with on a little bitty spots like this. And just so you know, all it takes is one little daub like that, one little small daub for that big pile, and that's all you need for hardener on this, because you don't want this to get hard soon, but we want it to get hard, but that's all you need, just that little splitch right there for that big old mound. It doesn't take a lot. Hey, while you're here and you're watching, like, share, and subscribe, smash that bell, hit that button, tell your friends, check out UncleBuckStuff.com. Well, I didn't use as much as I thought I was going to need. I only used about a quarter of it. But this is what I used for this hood. Okay? Now, let me explain what this is. This is just an old putty knife. You know, appropriate putty knife. All right, and it's got goo on it right now because I just spotted all the spots on it. You can see all the blue. Those are all the little Nixon stuff on this hood with minimal amount of Bondo. I didn't use a ton. And the reason I like this is because I've had this 30 years, okay? And fits my hand perfect, and she's just the right size for doing little stuff like this, okay? So the reason I like this is both corners on this one, it's so old, the corners are rounded off. So there's no sharp edges on this. And you can take, say this is a spot right here. Well, that actually is a spot. So you can take a little bit of Bondo, and you can take this and press against the edge and fill that hole in. See, you can't do that with a piece of plastic. That plastic will it'll make, it doesn't work well for little bitty spots like this. Now, the plastic applicator for if we were Bondoing a spot like this big, yeah, smear it on there and get it thick because you're going to knock it off. But when we're just doing spots, this is my go-to. Like I said, I've had this all my working on cars career life. I don't even remember where I got it, but this doesn't leave my paint kit because it's just so good, because you can put the pressure on it, fill in a little spot, scrape off the excess, and you're done. Just like that one, just like right there. Best little tool in the whole world for doing spots on a big panel. Love it. And I'll just let this dry, and I'll just take it over to the wire wheel over there, and I'll clean it off, and it'll be like brand new to be used next. And then the leftovers, because I looked that cab over pretty good. I ain't got nothing big that I need to use this, so that little bit, that was kind of wasteful. But it is what it is. Okay, so it's Friday night. Wife's on the way home with a pizza, so it's about 5:30, so we're going to let that cure for an hour or two, have some supper, drink a cold one, and then we'll come out and we'll DA those down. Then we'll start mist coating, and then we'll start block sanding with the long pad bar. We're gonna go to work. We're gonna go to work with that on that, and I'll show you how. Okay, had my pizza, and what is it about pizza and beer that goes together just so well? I don't know. When God made that combination, he just hit a home run. Pizza and beer, they're just no better. Okay, so it's been about an hour and a half, and she's ready. You want to know how you know she's ready? Take her fingernail and shove it in there. If you can't see no fingernail tracks, then it's hardened. All right, yep, this is hard. All right, so all these little spots, the blue, we're going to take them down real quick. What we're going to use DA. This is the pad that I was using. Okay, so I'm not going to put a brand new pad on just to knock this off. This will just zip right through that like butter. Because this is all just really thin, just little small spots. I'm just filling up nicks. So let's get this done, and then we'll start the fun stuff. Okay, DA is done, and I'll just show you. I didn't take them all the way down. That DA is not there to take them all the way down. The DA is just to knock all the big humps off. So they're just a millihair high, which is fine because now everything is busted down and all the high spots are hit down. Everything is roughed out. So now time for the longboard. And I've got the longboard set up with 240 grit. And then we're just going to stroke on this thing until this panel, that panel, and the panel in there is flat, and I don't get any weirdness out of it. And then we'll miscoat it with something darker, and then we'll do it again just to make sure she's good and straight. And I'll set up the tripod and show you how to do this. Okay, now the whole basis of this is that longboard flattens everything out more. So if I use that little short pad, it could have a tendency of leaving high and low spots, which would, once you shoot this flat black, it's going to show. So the whole premise of the longboard is that we're going to use this to find any spots, and we're just going to work it. And this is 240 grit, and we're just going to go long strokes, and this will flatten some of this out. See, it's already flattening this. It's already taking that down. And that's all you're doing. You're just working the highs and lows, and this will help you find them. And then once because see, we already got a high spot here. That wasn't the spot. That's just showing up in the paint. But that's what a longboard can help you find, because it won't bend. It's flat. It's a nice little piece of metal. And you just go, the easiest way to do is just do different directions. You can go stroke like this. You can stroke like this. And it is, the more directions you take it, the better of a product you're going to come out with. And see how this is just taking it off just super easy, just knocking it down. But it's also finding the high spots. High spots, finding the high spot. So the longboard, it takes a little time, and you can buy these air. You can buy them air, and you just hook up there and but for $9 at Harbor Freight, there'll be a link down below. And for doing it once or twice a year. Now, if I did this for a living, I can guarantee I'd have air assisted tools. But just for a couple times a year, or as in my case, once a decade, then this is the way to go. See, we'll just blow that off and we'll just continue to use. But I also bought it by the roll. So, because this is, you can't really buy a 15 or 16-inch piece of material. I imagine if you went to a paint store, an actual paint store, you could buy a 16-inch piece of whatever. But this is Harbor Freight, and this was like $7 for 25 foot. So, and it's $240. But then all we're gonna do is we're just gonna keep working, and this makes short notice of them high spots from that DA. Look at that. Look at how good that's doing. And like I said, we're just going different angles. Just switching it up just for shits and giggles. Just going different angles and just working it around. And I'm not using a lot of pressure. This board is doing the majority of the work. Now, it doesn't do very good once you get into the curves. But that's what the block sander, the little rubber block sander is for. And that's what the pad sander, the electric pad sander is for. This is what you're going to notice. You're not going to really look up here or up in here. You're going to notice this flat panel, this nice big flat panel. If there's blemishes in this panel, you're going to see them. And that's what this fixes. So I'm going to continue on and board this out, maybe change this out one more time go over it a second time, and then I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. Okay, now this is a prime example of what I'm talking about with using the longboard. See this right here? That's just dust. This is a low spot. Now that I see it, now that I can tell it's there from the grinding, I can feel it, but I couldn't see that with my eyes until I started longboarding. All the brown, that's the original color. That's high spots. Okay, that's high spots getting smoothed out by the longboard that you really can't feel. You can't feel them when they're there. Before this, it's like this. You can't feel high-low spot. But with a 15-inch board, boom, there they are. Boom, there they are. Boom, over there. High-low spots, brown is the original color. Okay, Bondo, metal. That's how wavy this front piece is. That's what the longboard fixes. It finds like this, where that rock chip is, it creates a small dent. Rock chip, chip. You'd think it just nicks the paint. It creates small dents. And that's what that's good for. I mean, that's why I always love a longboard on big panels, because you can't feel that. You can't feel that by your hand. It's the thickness of the paint. Okay, but once you prep this and once you throw paint on this, it'll show like a diamond in a go test. Yeah, that's an old saying, an old guy, diamond in the go test. That would show in that paint job just like a boom, there it is. Okay, longboard's the way to go. $9 at Harbor Freight. There'll be a link down. Okay, I'm sure you guys don't quite get what I was talking about when it comes to the nicks and the rock chips and stuff creating a high spot. Okay, so we'll call that a rock coming off the road. And it's coming at the surface like this, right? And it's coming down and it's going to hit, right? Now, the way it was explained to me by my dear friend's dad, those way late nights working at the dealership, was that it's like a drop of water in dropping a pebble in the water. So when that force comes down and it hits the metal, right? It not only hits a divot, it creates a wave when it hits. Just like that. That force creates a divot in the metal, which is, this would be the theoretical line of the steel, right? So when it hits, it creates both the divot, the high spot, and a low spot outside of it. Even though it's a little bitty, and you can't really, and even though it's faint and it's very thin, and you can't really feel it with your hands. I'm sure there's body shop guys out there that can feel it with their hands, but that's what you're dealing with. That's why they look like they do. I'll give you the example of these right here. You see the divot, you see the gray spot, and that's the low spot that's the low spot that the yellow painted, and that's the original. So that's the divot and the wave around it. Divot and wave around it. Divot and wave around it. That's why they all look like this when you start using the longboard, because that's actually not just a little small hit. It is an actual small miniature dent. High spot, low spot. Just like a wave in a pool with a pebble dropping in it. So I would say these are just blemishes from the factory, but same thing. See? Divot, big hit, around it. Divot, around it. So you're not just dealing with the scratch if it's a rock hit or a chip or hit by a hammer or somebody set something on it real hard. You're also dealing with a very small dent that you have to deal with. And normally, like I said, it's very thin, and a couple of layers of paint, like the original and the second coat, will actually cover your ass on that deal. But that's why it does what it does. And that's why those look like they look. Hey, tell me down below if you guys like that explanation on the board, drawing it out like that, if that helps out. If you guys want me to do more of that, just say down below or say that's awesome, I like it, or you guys think it's stupid. You just let me know, because I'm just here to try to help to pass what I've learned along to you guys so you can do this at home yourself and enjoy working on your hot rods. So let me know.